Queens Public Library is approaching the final days of its 125th anniversary year, and we're celebrating by announcing March 19th as QPL Day. Keep checking queenslibrary.org for upcoming giveaways and more. During this year's celebration of Women's History Month, QPL honors the leadership, strength, and power of all individuals who identify as women. We salute our local trailblazers who, thanks to their determination and hard work, have made significant contributions to Queens and opened a world of opportunities for generations to come. Learn more about our celebrations at queenslib.org/WHM 2022. Tax season is here. Queens Public Library has compiled a resource list of partner organizations who can provide you with virtual tax help this year. Visit our blog on queenslibrary.org for more information. Try BrainFuse Help Now, which offers live online tutoring and homework help every day from 2 to 11 p.m., an adult learning center, a 24-hour writing lab, and more. Visit queenslib.org/brainfuse to access this online service.
Welcome to Queens Public Library's Talk with Ava Cherry, singer, fashion icon, former David Bowie collaborator and co-author, along with Lisa Totem of All That Glitters, the Ava Cherry Story. Joe Shanahan of Metro wrote, Ava Cherry is the power behind the throne. I'm Brian Alessandro. For those of you who don't know me, I have written for Interview Magazine, Newsday, Pank, Huffington Post, and have recently adapted Edmund White's A Boy's Own Story into a graphic novel for Top Shelf Productions, which will be released this fall. Additionally, I co-edited an anthology of essays and interviews about William S. Burroughs, which will be released this summer. I'm also the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the literary journal, The New Engagement. My first novel, The Unmentionable Mon, was published in 2015 by Cairn Press, and my first feature film, Afghan Hound, was produced by Marriott Media in 2011. Culture Connection, curated by Daniel Zaleski and now in its 8th year at the Queens Public Library, is proud to present international artists from emerging talent to award-winning masters. These disciplines include music, theater, author talks, and film. Now expanding into a virtual format, Culture Connection is currently reaching a global audience. In addition to a solo career in music, Ava Cherry has collaborated with and sang backup for David Bowie, Luther Vandross, and Chaka Khan. In addition to a very robust career that stretches back to the early 1970s. Ava, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brian. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So let's start with the man himself, David Bowie. The two of you met in the early 1970s when you were, and correct me if I'm wrong, a nightclub waitress at Genesis.
Yeah, I was working as a waitress in a cocktail bar when I met him. Yes, I was. It was an upscale bar, but it was a disco. Yeah, and I was modeling, and I just come to New York and just got an apartment, and I had just bleached my hair short, platinum blonde.
And he was touring for the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Is that right?
Yeah, it was his first major American tour, and he was at Radio City. And at the same time, Stevie Wonder, who was a friend of mine, was doing Carnegie Hall that same week. And so Stevie said, well, Ava, where should we give a party after the show? It was an incredible show. And I said, well, why don't you give it at the place I work? It's a great club, it's upscale. Sure. And that's where we gave it. And that's where I met David.
Wow. What were the first few minutes of your initial interaction like? Can you bring us back to that moment?
Yeah, I certainly can. I mean, it was like yesterday because my manager had given me his album, The Rise of Ziggy Stardust. And I don't know why my manager, I mean, it must have been fate, because I don't know why my manager gave me his album. He said, Ava, there's this guy named David Bowie, and he's coming to America, and I think he's going to be really huge. And he says, listen to his album. And I don't know why he wanted me to listen to his album, but I was like, okay. I listened to I saw the cover of him in the telephone booth, the English telephone booth, the green hair. And I said, wow, he's different, and then I put the record on. And the first song that really grabbed me was Moon Age Daydream. Mm-hmm. And I just fell in love. It was like, 'cause I was always a sci-fi fanatic. Sure. And it seemed like he was talking about space and alien, that kind of beings and things. And he was an alien being. Yeah. And I just fell in love with the record and him as well.
Wow. Can you talk to us a little bit about your artistic collaboration with him and how it influenced the Young Americans, his 9th album, and the subsequent Blue-Eyed Soul era?
Right. Well, when we were living in London, he was, loving Michael Jackson and Marvin Gaye and Aretha Franklin and all the greats. And he said to me, so, I'm going to be a soul singer right now. I just want to, that's the chameleon I want to be right now. And, what should we do? And I said, well, the first thing we should do is go to New York and go to the Apollo, which is where all the greatest soul bands have performed, sure, and try to maybe find a band there. Sure. So he said, okay, let's do that. So the next thing I knew, he sent me to New York ahead, and he started talking to people, a producer called Tony Sylvester and a bunch of people about trying to put a band together, and that he wanted to go to the Apollo. And it just so happened that the night we were, that they made for the Apollo, Tony Sylvester and Carlos Alomar and those guys were performing there, along with Richard Pryor and the Spinners and the Temptations and all those people. So it was an amazing show. And I just remember us showing up in front of the Apollo, and David with his really high red ziggy hair, and me with my blonde platinum hair, and all these black people standing on 125th Street in Harlem and going, who's that? It was like we stepped out of this limousine, and it was just, we looked like these people from Mars, right? And but they were nice. They were like, who's that? And I said, his name's David Bowie. And they said, David Bowie? I said, David Bowie. And and they were nice, and we went in, and David thoroughly enjoyed the show and met everyone, and then we went backstage, and that's where he met Carlos Alomar.
And the rest ended up becoming history, right?
The rest is history, yeah.
Wow. To have been there and to have been a part of that and responsible really for that trajectory. Living history, Ava. What was Bowie like generally? Can you just talk to us about his person and relationship?
He was a complex person, but he was very professional. Very, if he was interested in something, he would read up. I mean, whatever subject he would be interested in, he'd read like 50 books on it. Like he was one of the first people to start messing with computers and stuff like that. He read about how they worked, and he had the dinosaur computer situation. He was, he could be very, he could kind of make some people feel uncomfortable without really saying much, because he just had his personality was very sort of dominating, but not in a bad way or anything. It was just, I can't explain it. You felt like he was the master sometimes,
Right. Yeah. Like a real presence.
Yeah. He had a real presence of, and I think that when he met me, I had this bubbly personality, and, I don't think I was, an intellectual yet or anything like that. But I was really street smart, and I had a great personality, and I always knew that anyway about myself. I mean, people were always telling me when I was coming in, well, you have a great personality. So he saw that, and when I would be with him, people would see that personality with him. And when I tell this story sometimes. One time we were getting out of a limousine, and all these fans came rushing up, and he kind of recoiled a little bit because he was afraid. He didn't know what they were going to do. And I was like, David, don't be afraid of everyone. They're not going to hurt you. They love you. They're your fans, and he started to relax on me. He told me, you make me feel relaxed around a lot of people that I never did before. So yeah, I think I did that for him. I think it was. And he was a teacher. He was a teacher and a mentor. I mean, he would say to me, okay, I want you to go up to the top of the stairway. And then when the music starts, there's going to be a spot on you, and you're going to come down the stairs regally like a queen. And, that sort of thing. Is
that creatively involved in staging and staging?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So, because he came from mime. He had mime background.
Right. That's interesting. It's something we don't hear too much of, but that was origins, right?
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of the British, Mick Jagger and all, they all went to art school, and they learned all those things there,
There's something to that, Ava. I mean, these artists who are able to endure for 50, 60, 70 years, they have a real, truly artistic foundation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You wrote in your beautiful, moving memoir, That Glitters, that David was one of the biggest loves of your life. And that he was in an open marriage with his then wife, Angie, when you met. Can you discuss that aspect of your relationship with him?
Well, when I first met him, he didn't tell me he was married. And then it seemed like the first night after we were together, the door knocks, and this woman comes in. She goes, hello.
It was Angie. Yeah.
It was Angie. Wow. And I'm standing there in his bathrobe, looking like, who is she? And so he goes, oh, Ava, this is my wife, Angie.
Oh my gosh.
Your wife? I didn't say your wife. I just looked like, what?
Sure.
I'm standing here in my bathrobe. That's your wife, And so she was like, and as soon as she was in there, she was like, so, okay, I just want to say hello. I'm going back to London tomorrow. See you, David. I'll see you soon, darling. So she leaves, and I said to him, David, why didn't you tell me you were married? Because I'm not sure whether I would have come here with you last night if I knew that. I said, I'm not used to, I don't hang out with married men.
Sure.
I thought, he said, well, I'm sorry I didn't tell you, Ava, but we have an open marriage. She sleeps with who she wants to sleep with. I sleep with who I want to sleep with. And that's how it's been for a long time. And so I didn't think it would bother you. And I said, well, but by then I was already smitten, honey, and it was just too late.
And then how long did it last at that point? How much longer?
About 4 or 5 years.
5 years, right? And there's this, you write about how you ended up quitting your job to tour with Bowie in Japan, but then the tour was canceled, and then you traveled to Europe to find him. Can you talk to us about that incredible experience? Well,
I had been asked earlier by this older gentleman who lived in Monaco most of the year, did I want to go to Monaco for the summer in the south of France? I had never been to Europe before in my life. And so I wanted to go, but I didn't want to be with him. So I said, no. I said, no, thank you, And he said, okay, well, if you change your mind. So when I got to Chicago, and the telegram came saying that the tour had been canceled with David, and he had gotten sick, and we'll get a hold of you in the future. That wasn't good enough for me. I was just devastated. I said, I got to find a way to go. I got to find a way to get to Europe. I got to find him. Wow. That's all I knew. I was so, my mother couldn't even believe my obsession with it and my motivation, and I just had to find him. I had to find him. I'm not even understanding it now. Now at this point, it was like, I just knew that there was no way I was not going to go. So my mom goes, well, she gave me like $200 or something. She goes, are you going to be okay? But she trusted me because she let me do a lot of different things. I was a Playboy bunny, whatever, when I was, like 16 and all that. She worked for Playboy, which is why she trusted me to be a Playboy. But it's all I'm saying is that she knew I was mature for my age. I hung out with much older people than myself. I said, Mom, I got to go. And I went. And I called up the guy who had asked me, and I said, "Yeah." I said, "You invited me to Monaco," and he said, "Oh, you want to come?" I said, "Yeah." So I went, and I saw myself coming down in the plane. I don't know if any of your listeners have ever been to Monaco in the south of France, but it's one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Yeah,
And I was just seeing the casino and the palace and everything. I was like, "Oh my God, this is a fairy tale," you know. And I land there. So, I hung out with this guy for a bit, but gosh, I just was not happy. I didn't really want to be with him, and he could tell that I didn't. So he was very nice. He said, "Listen, I guess you really don't want to be with me, huh?" I said, I don't mean any harm. I just look, I find this guy, David Bowie. I do. So he goes, I said, "I want to go to Paris." So he said, "Okay, well, okay." I said, "I need 1,000 francs though." So he gave me 1,000 francs. I asked him where to go. He said, "Go to the Boulevard Saint-Germain, and there's a Café de Flore, which is a very famous cafe where all the celebrities go, and just sit there and you'll meet people," which was absolutely true. I had my modeling book with me, and I had checked into an all-women's hotel, and then I went dressed to the nines. I went to the Café de Flore, and I sat down. So I'm sitting there for a while. I see all these beautiful French women dressed impeccably and beautiful, and and so all of a sudden I said, "Does anybody here speak English?" And this guy comes running over to me, a beautiful black guy. He was North African, I could tell, and his name was Jocelyn, and I knew he was gay when he came up to me, and I was kind of glad because I really didn't want to have to be with somebody that I didn't want to be with, just trying to find my way around. So the fact that he was a gay man was wonderful for me, And he said, "Oh, huh?"
Made you feel secure.
Yeah, it made me just feel not intimidated by a guy approaching me and saying, because what happened was he approached me. He said, "My name is Jocelyn, and I work for Cerruti, which was a big fashion house in Italy and in France." And he said, "Well, what are you doing here?" I told him I was looking for David Bowie. I was a model. I checked in. He said, "Where are you staying?" I said, "I checked into an all-women's hotel down the street, and I'm trying to work and then find David Bowie." So he said, "Okay, well, I'll help you." He said, "You could stay at my house. I have an extra room, and I'll help you find an agent." And it was just like God was over my shoulder. This guy he was so sweet and so wonderful and beautiful man and beautifully dressed. And I said, "How lucky can I be that this guy doesn't want my body, but he's going to help me?"
Did you stay in touch with him, with Jocelyn?
No, I feel kind of bad because when I left him in Paris, we didn't speak anymore after that. And because I was just young and
of course.
I mean, I think he understood. Maybe he did, or I don't know. I hope he does now. But he had a wonderful lover who was very, very, who was a nobleman. So, maybe he didn't really care about that so much. But anyway, so that's what happened.
And how soon after that did you end up eventually catching up with David?
Well, 8 months later.
8 months later.
I mean, he got me an agent.
Wow.
And then they called me Velvedo. That was my name. That was my modeling name. And I was in French Vogue and Paris Match. And so one day I was in this bar across the street from a very upscale club called Chez Castel. And I heard David's name at the end of the bar. David Bowie. I'm like, so my ears were perked up if ever I heard his name, right? So I go running to the end of the bar and I say, "Excuse me, tu as dit David Bowie?" He said, "Oui, il est là-bas chez Castel." He's over across the street. Because I was like, "Vraiment? Really?" He goes, "Oui." I'm like, I can't believe this. I'm in this bar. He says David's name, and he's across the street.
It's kismet. It's kismet.
It was kismet. You're right. That's a great word.
Yeah.
So I'm not dressed for Castel, like, diamonds and pearls and silk, but I looked nice and I looked pretty. And so I went running across the street, and Castel had a spiral staircase that you had to go down. I looked down the staircase and I see David's bodyguard, Stewie. And Stewie sees me because he sees my hair.
Oh, wow.
And he comes running, he goes, Ava, what are you doing here?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I've been looking for David. He goes, what? He goes, oh my God, the governor's going to be really, really surprised. The governor, he used to call him the governor, right?
That's great.
And I know, so he says, come on, I'm going to say. So he takes my hand and we're walking over. David's talking to a lady dripping in diamonds and pearls next to him. And we walk right, and I stand in front of him, and he turns around and he looks up and he goes, ah, Ava?
Oh my gosh.
He goes, oh my goodness, what are you doing here? I said, I came looking for you.
Wow. What did he say to that?
He goes, you came all the way from America looking for me?
Wow.
I said, yes. I couldn't just let you leave me like that. And he goes, oh my gosh. So he goes, sit down. He told me to sit down. I sat down next to him. And then 5 minutes later, he looked around at me and he said, let's go. He takes my hand and we go. And we get in the limousine and we whiz off to the Chateau d'Orville in the French countryside. And he left the woman with the diamonds and pearls.
What a great story. What an incredible, epic story. You stayed in touch with him?
No, I didn't. And the reason being because I knew Iman. See, I knew Iman before he married her. We used to, the crazy party days, She was in those days. Mm-hmm. And every party I went to, she would be there. Mm-hmm. So I knew her, but I didn't know she knew David. Oh. And when they got, engaged and all that, and then they were, because I went to their engagement party. I was invited by somebody else to their engagement party. And Iman came up to me and showed me the engagement ring and said, you see Ava's engagement ring David gave me? Which I knew, she knew I must have meant something to David. Otherwise she wouldn't have showed me the engagement ring, and so I was standing there, I felt, oh God, I still had love for him so much. And I said, congratulations. I wish you guys all the happiness. Wow. Inside I felt so empty, but I didn't, I wasn't bitter or malice or anything. I didn't know what to feel except to say, congratulations.
Sure.
And then I did not talk to him, try to reach out to him, because I understood that it would be difficult because I knew her before and because she was a Black girl and all the stuff that, I'm sorry, I have to say that people might not think matters. It was all an issue.
Sure, of course.
So I didn't want them to think I was trying to interfere in their marriage.
Right.
So I just left them alone.
Wow. Until
3 years before he died, when they were trying not to pay me for Fame, which I was on, I got a lawyer and I said, listen, I'm on Fame. And they were like, no, you weren't on Fame. I'm like, I wasn't Fame. So I got a lawyer who did it for me pro bono. I mean, because see, they knew that, probably couldn't afford a lawyer to sue them. But when I told the lawyer that I was trying to get about it, he goes, you know what? I'm going to do this for you pro bono because I can't stand how they do artists in the business. They said they didn't want to pay me because my name wasn't under that particular song. My name was in the whole album.
This was the label, right? The label that was giving you.
Yeah. RCA.
RCA.
And so he took on the case, and so his estate. But David was sick at the time. I tried to reach him, but they wouldn't let me get to him. And his estate kept jacking us around for months and not answering us. And so finally my lawyer said, listen, this is the final warning to you. If you do not answer us, we will get everyone in court. Yoko, everybody that was in the studio that day, we will get the master tape and we will take her voice off of it and we will prove that she's on it.
Wow.
And then they finally answered us. And now I get a piece of every time Fame is on anything.
Good for you. Good for you.
So you know what, guys? You have to fight for what you want. You can, if you sit around and go, oh, feel sorry for yourself, you're never going to get your just desserts. You've got to fight. If somebody's jacking you around, you've got to fight for it.
Yeah, we'll take full advantage of you otherwise. You also sang backup for Luther Vandross and Chaka Khan. Can you tell us some others and maybe get?
Well,
was like
Well,
to.
actually, I didn't sing backup for Shaka on the Road. I did a demo for her. Hollywood was the name of the song, and I did the original demo. So and I knew Shaka from Chicago because we were both from Chicago, and I knew her before, when she was with a group called Lock and Chain, way before she was Shaka Khan.
Sure.
So I knew her, but I'm just saying I did that demo. I didn't tour with her, but Luther I toured with, and I did recording sessions with a lot of other artists, but Luther Vandross and David were the main ones that I really. And Luther Vandross was the most incredible artist. I mean,
Yeah.
I miss him so. We used to fight like brother and sister and all that. But he respected my talent. I respected his. I respected him, and I just miss his voice, and I miss all those things.
Such a strong, sort of silky smooth voice. You were also featured in the Academy Award-winning documentary 20 Feet from Stardom about backup singers in 2013, I believe.
Yes.
Talk to us about that film and your appearance in it. And congratulations to be in a film that won an Academy Award. That's incredible.
Right. Well, the thing is that, I was told by the people that did the film, some of the people, that they tried to find me to actually be, because I was in all of the film, except that I didn't actually speak like I'm speaking to you right now. Right. And I said, how come you couldn't find me? I was there and I could have been found. For some reason, nobody found me. Okay. So, that's okay. But it was an incredible experience, because what the whole thing was about is how so many black girl magic helped to make some of these groups, some of these rock groups and some of these groups out here, even more famous than they already were. Yes. Even more successful.
I go back to Anne's quote, the power behind the throne.
Exactly.
Ava, you sent us a bunch of really fantastic photos. Zamina, if you could put them up and we can maybe go through them. If you wouldn't mind narrating, Ava, as we view them. So here's a picture of, go ahead.
Right. That one was, I don't know, I think we had gone to see George Harrison, and we were just sitting there talking to each other, and I was telling him that I never wanted to leave him, that I just enjoyed being with him so much. And then I was just giving him this crazy look, and he was looking back at me like saying something like, who's the clever girl then?
I love that photo. It's so sweet and captures such an intimate, organic moment.
It really does. It means so much to me, that because he knew what my feelings were for him, and his feelings for me, I think, reflect in how he looked at me as well.
Yeah, you see it. It's there. The intimacy is real. And here are the two of you again.
Oh, yeah. So we were, going to the Grammys, and I was trying to, my serious look. It was just my serious look, going to the Grammys. And he was so excited that night to go and give the Grammy to Aretha Franklin. He was really excited about that.
What year was that, Ava? Do you know off the top of your head?
I'm not really quite sure.
Now, we can't really see these, but this was interesting. This was the negatives that you had scanned on your social media. And it looks like the two of you were maybe rehearsing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were in the studio doing the Young Americans album.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And that was on the Dick Cavett show.
Yes. And we're going to look at that clip later on of you performing Young Americans.
Right.
Young American with David Bowie on.
Right. That's my mama.
And you write about her quite a bit in your memoir.
Because she's everything to me. She helped push me along and made everything all worthwhile in those days. She was my heart and my staff and everything, and she still is.
I don't know her, of course, but I have a sense of her after reading your book, and she seemed very strong and supportive.
Oh, my goodness. So supportive of everything I did, everything I ever did. She was supporting me. And that's my dad. My dad. And my dad was in World War II. He was in the Battle of Normandy.
Wow.
And they wrote about him in the paper here when that happened. I had the paper clippings. Sorry, I didn't give them to you. But my dad, he was a trumpet player, and he played in a band called the Benny Latham Band. it was a great. He opened for Count Basie and all of that. Those
Cool.
people in the 40s. He and his twin brother both played trumpet.
That's great. I see where you get the musical.
That's me when I was 6.
It stars in your eyes.
I know. It's just me going, I'm gonna be something.
You knew. And there's Mama.
And there's Mom again. It's my mom, and now she's 88 years old.
God bless. And there's you.
And that's me. I was in New York in Los Angeles a couple of months ago, and I did a photo shoot there. And that's me.
In the same
thing. Yeah.
Oh, and you're friends
and me, that's me, Keith Richards. Yeah, me and Keith Richards go way back to the Bowie days, and Keith was always a friend, a good friend, and just somebody that I could always talk to if he was around and I needed to.
You write about him a lot too in your memoir. You guys are real buddies.
Because whenever they're around, whenever they're performing, he always gives me tickets and spends some time with me and just talks to me, just as a friend.
Sure,
It's so funny for a woman to be around a man that's just a friend to them, but that's all he ever was. I mean, he loved his wife and the woman he's with, and he always just, when we got together, we listened to music and talked about with music, other musicians, other vocalists, and whatever. And Keith is a good person, good heart, sweet person. Just, I have so much love for him.
This photo looks pretty recent, right? I mean, just in the last.
Yeah, that was like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, just before COVID. And that's it. Thank you, Zemina. So thank you, Ava, for narrating those. Tell us a little bit about your involvement with the band The Astronettes, which released its debut album in 1995. Bowie helped with this creation?
Well, the thing is that David, when he first got with me, had this idea that he wanted it to be David Bowie and The Astronettes.
No.
And then he decided to make it Ava Cherry and The Astronettes when he decided that he wanted to produce me. And he started recording demos of me for me, and we started doing those in New York. And I did a few of them in France, but mostly in New York. But they were only demos. You know, we were just starting to pick the songs and pick the right songs for me and all this other stuff. And then, right as we were getting to a certain point, he started having problems with his management company and problems with feeling that money was being taken from him and things of that nature. So we had to stop. And so the album was supposed to have been put in a vault. He said, well, Ava, we're just going to, when I get all my stuff together with my business, then we're going to come back to it and finish it. And he said, it's safe. I'm going to put it in a vault. But apparently his manager found it, took it out and released it in just the demo form.
Oh, that's too bad.
I know.
What about Go? It's a progressive jazz band, and it had Santana drummer Michael Shreve.
Wait a minute, how do you know about Go? I don't remember telling anybody about that one.
Oh, I did. That was independent research.
Stomu Yamashita, yeah. Because Stomu Yamashita, he was a very famous Japanese musician, and he put together a bunch of great musicians, and we were called Go.
Oh, yeah. It sounded so exciting, and it was Steve Winwood was in it as well.
And Mike Shreve on drums from Santana.
Santana.
And Paul, what was Paul's name? Paul on bass. I forget his name now. But it was a great band, and we didn't last for very long because everybody was kind of busy after we did a short tour. But it was fun.
An eclectic group of talent, you know.
Oh yeah.
And then your first solo album in 1980, Ripe?
Yeah.
And Curtis Mayfield produced it?
Curtis Mayfield produced some tracks on it. Yeah. And You Never Loved Me, Love Is Good News. And I had the most incredible time working with Curtis Mayfield. What an incredible man. I worked with, what's his name, man? He was the musical director for Motown for, I can't think of his name. But anyway, Curtis did like about 3 tracks on that album. and I worked with another artist named Gavin Christopher, who was very well. He wrote "Once You Get Started" for Shaka, and "Stars in Your Eyes" for Herbie Hancock, and Bobby Eli, who did all the Philly sound. I worked with him in the studio as well.
It's all legendary performers, and
yes,
Curtis was
producers, yeah.
Yeah, and Curtis was such a force for you during this time.
I think that if Curtis hadn't come into my life at that moment and hadn't been signed to Curtom, I would have fallen apart, because it was just after my breakup with David, and I was just trying to sink my teeth into something that I could feel whole again, you know, and that was it.
Ava, in your memoir, you wrote that your family lived big, that your mother lit the fire for your love of music, that your home was a matriarchy with 9 great aunts, and that your dad, of course, was in a bandstand. In addition to that, how did growing up in Chicago's South Side shape your musical sensibilities?
Well, we used to stand outside of our building and sing shoop 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 doo-wop songs. We would get groups together, people that lived in the neighborhood that could sing, and we'd all sing "In the Still of the Night When I Held You Tight, because I love you so, promise I'll never let you go, in the still of the night, in the still of the night."
All right. We got a performance. Thank you for that. So it was just in the air, huh? It was
in the air. Everybody in the neighborhood, everybody wanted to sing, and everybody just felt happy. You know, we weren't rich or nothing. I didn't come from a rich neighborhood, but we had fun. We had fun. You know, we played bid whist and cards and games. We had fun.
Community, and it was fun, and there was
and there was support. There was support all around you.
You also said you started modeling at a young age. You mentioned before that your mom worked in the administrative offices of Playboy.
Playboy, yeah, she worked in the administrative offices of Playboy, and you know, I was shot by Victor Skrybnevsky. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a very famous photographer. He did a lot of solarization in black and white looking photographs. I started modeling, and I said, okay, let me start off the modeling and then see where that takes me. So I did that for a while. And then I met these girls when I was like 16. They were like 19, and they were Playboy bunnies. And I met them like in here in Old Town, which was a hangout. And they were like, "Oh, you should come by the Hefner Mansion. You know, Hugh Hefner, Playboy. You know, every Sunday he shows a movie and has dinner, and you know, whatever. He shows a movie before it's been released into the theaters. So you should come." So I was invited. I started going, and I went every Sunday for about 2 or 3 months. And Hefner was always playing backgammon with his friends. So you know, a lot of the girls was afraid to get too close to him or whatever. I sat right down next to him. See, I wasn't afraid of people. I didn't care if they were celebrities or not. I mean, I gave him respect, but I wasn't afraid or anything like that. I used to sit down next to him while he was playing and watch him play, because I love backgammon. And I said, "Oh, well, guess I better go home. It's getting late." He goes, "What are you going to go home for? You might as well live here. You're here all the time anyway. You might as well live here."
Wow. And so then you became...
I became a bunny.
Bunny. And how long did you live?
Just a year. It was a stepping stone.
What was that like, living in the mansion and hanging out?
Oh, incredible. Because one day I was sitting in the living room, and you know, it was like 2 a.m. I was just in the big living room, huge living room, sunken living room, all by myself. And there was a big grand piano. You know, you could go up a little stair, and it was grand piano. And then there were all these bedrooms that, like 4 bedrooms, a red room, blue room, green room, where celebrities that were in town would stay. They'd ask Hefner if they could stay, and they would stay in one of those rooms. So I'm sitting there one morning watching TV, and this guy comes out of the red room and goes and sits down at the piano. So I wanted to know who he was. So I go walking to him, and I said, "Hi." He said, "Hi." He was playing. I said, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm playing the piano." I said, "Oh, okay." He said, what was his name? He said, I said, "Well, what do you do?" He says, "I'm an actor." And I said, oh, he says, I just finished a film called The Godfather. And I said, he says, I played Sonny.
Oh, wow.
So
Robert
you knew
Duvall.
who that was.
Robert Duvall, right? Yeah.
Who?
Robert Duvall. I
No.
mean, James Caan. My
James Caan.
family's gonna
James
kill me
Caan.
for that one.
Right.
James Caan.
It was James Caan. He was sitting there. He says, yeah, I played Sonny, and it comes out next year. I'm like, oh, okay. I had no idea who he was, but I was sitting down next to him in the piano.
So the novel existed by Mario Puzo, but the film is what really made the franchise popular.
Exactly. And then, we'd give parties where there'd be everybody there, all this, Warren Beatty, Tom Jones, everybody who was anybody was there. So I was already used to being around celebrities way before David. Because people go, oh, well, how did you just come from South Side of Chicago and get involved with David Bowie? I'm like, no, honey, I was around celebrities before David.
James Caan, I
just sat down next to James Caan. Yeah, he was Sonny, baby.
We duetted together on the piano in the Playboy Mansion, Yeah. Your second album was Streetcar Named Desire in 1982, and then there was Picture Me in 1987. I'm asking you about these because your solo career, you put out 4 solo albums. Is that correct?
Right.
What felt different to you about being a soloist versus singing for people like Vandross and Bowie?
Well, I mean, I loved being a solo artist, but what I found was I was signed twice to Capitol Records. First for the Streetcar Named Desire, and then second time, Picture Me. Don Zimmerman was the president, but I mean, I loved being a solo artist, and I think that everybody knew that I had something, and there was something great there, but they didn't have Black A&R in position at the time. They didn't have Black promotion in Capitol at the time. Neither time that I was signed to Capitol Records did they have Black promotion in place. Neither time. So, and they spent like $200,000 on each record. So it was just a waste of money, where what record labels did in those days, they'd spend all this money on the record and then they wouldn't spend any money in the promotion. Yeah. And so that's what happened to me twice.
Yeah.
And I had reviewers to review me. I have the press that said, if this record isn't a success, if these records aren't a success, it's because of poor promotion from the record label.
This was the 1980s. This was 1982 and 1987. We're not going back to the 30s or the 40s. It's not that long.
I know, but I'm just telling you. I'm going to tell you, like, I had a song on called "Love to Be Touched" on the Streetcar record, and we did it. We put it on a plain label, and all the pop stations started to play it. It was "I Love to Be Touched." It was kind of that kind of a groove. It was kind of new age or whatever. I don't know. And they were playing it, but as soon as we sent them another copy of it with my picture on it, they stopped playing it.
Oh my God!
So there was some racism there, and especially letting Black artists become pop artists. I mean, Michael Jackson, that was what David did an interview about that Michael was huge and Michael was incredible, but MTV would not play his videos like they were playing all the other ones, and he complained about it to the guys, and they couldn't explain why. They couldn't explain it. And that's one thing I loved about David. He didn't have a racist bone in his body. He was really, like, I'm sure some people didn't like that we were boyfriend and girlfriend, but he didn't care. He was like, look at them and say, I dare you to say something. Yeah. I dare you. Yeah. He was wonderful. I miss him.
And we all do, honestly. In the introduction to your book, your co-writer, Lisa Totum writes, "The lives of David Bowie and Luther Vandross have previously been discussed and documented, and Ava was important to both men's careers, yet her own gifts, which include a unique sense of style, sharp songwriting, and evocative vocals, have often been relegated to the sidelines." How did you meet Lisa Torum, and what was the process of co-writing All That Glitters?
Well, actually, I met Lisa just before the pandemic happened, and at a party. I know. I met her at the Bowie Is I think I met her at the Bowie Is exhibition here in Chicago, which I represented. And she came up to me, we were talking, and she was so wonderful. She's such a lovely lady, Lisa Torm, and a great writer. And she'd done a lot of journalistic work on rock artists, a lot of different other artists. And so people constantly kept saying to me, "Ava, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. You need to write a book." So finally I said, well, okay. And then when she kind of implicated that she was writing books and she might be interested, I said, well, what do you think about writing a book together? And she said, I'd love it. So when COVID actually came into full swing, we let a couple of years go by where we talked about it, but we didn't really do it. By the time 2019 came, we started talking about it again. And then we just started we figured through the virus, we would write, and that would be a good way to get things done.
The one silver lining about this horrible pandemic is that it has allowed people to really flex their creative and artistic muscles at home, because they suddenly have time to do so.
Exactly.
You in your memoir, you also write about hanging out with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. And there was this really incredible episode that you recount in your book with John and breakfast and David. And can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, David, we had been up all night partying, and so we're sitting we're sitting in the kitchen laughing and just having a nice time and being relaxed. And so David all of a sudden says to me, it's like 6 a.m. He goes, Ava, could you make us some coffee and maybe some toast? And so I said, sure. And so Yoko went, oh no. I'm looking at Yoko and she goes, why should she make breakfast? She has been up like all of us. We have all been up the same. She was just going on. We've all been up the same time. And why should she have to make breakfast for us?
Wow.
So David just kind of looked at her like, he couldn't believe she said that. And so when she said that, I didn't make breakfast.
Did you all eat? Did you have breakfast at all at that point?
No, we went out to eat, but I think he was mad at me that I didn't go ahead and make the breakfast, but I kind of felt she was right. I mean, even though I wouldn't have minded doing it, but when she brought it to my attention that I was up like everybody else and I was tired, I said,
all 4 of you, right? All 4 of you were sort of sleepless.
Yeah. So it proved to me that the reason that they said that the Beatles did not sometimes like Yoko is because she was a women's liberal. She was a feminist, and they didn't like that about her.
Spoke her mind. She was tough. Still is, I'm sure.
Still is. Yeah. And I'm telling you, John loved it because she was. He was laughing so hard when David's face dropped when she said that. He was cracking up. He was just in the background cracking up because he knew she was going to say something. He believed in women's rights too.
Sure. Have you stayed in touch?
I love John Lennon. He was sweet.
Another wonderful artist. Did you have you stayed in touch at all with Yoko?
No, because Yoko and I weren't really tight. It was more with John, because whenever I would hang out with him, then with David, sometimes we would just go by and John would just be there or something. Yoko wouldn't be. So I didn't really see Yoko that much. I didn't really see her that much. It was mainly John.
We're going to start taking questions for Ava soon, so please start sending them in. Ava, have you received any feedback yet on the memoir? Because you talk about family, friends, as other people in the industry.
Oh, I've received feedback from everybody saying they love it. I mean, every single person that I know that's bought it or on my Facebook page or whatever, they're like, what a read, what a great read. Ava, I love the book. I enjoyed it so much. And somebody even told me they read it twice. I'm like, you read it twice?
That was me. I had to read it twice for questions. I'm kidding.
So yeah, I mean, because my reasoning behind doing the book was not to put people down, not to talk about people in a mean way, not to all I just wanted to do was tell my story and just tell it from the beginning. And it wasn't all about David Bowie, which is what it's obviously in the book. It was just about how I began my life and with the story that he was in, that happened, when I met him.
So I want to talk about what you're working on now and what you're still performing regularly. You're about to go to the David Bowie Festival in
Yeah,
Ireland.
The Bowie Ireland Festival in Ireland. It's on April 13th to the 24th. I'm going to be performing there, and a tribute to David. And I'm also going to be doing interviews and book signings there a different day in that week. And then I go on to Germany to record a brand new song.
Oh, exciting, exciting.
I'm
So
excited.
you'll be in Europe for a month or two, I guess, huh?
What'd you say?
In Europe for about a month or
Oh
two.
yeah. I'm used to Europe though. I'm a world traveler, so
Good.
I've been to Europe a bunch of times, but I've never been to Ireland, and that's one of the reasons that I've heard it's the most beautiful place.
We're just
Beautiful.
really stunning. You were also in the process of having your memoir made into a film. Can you talk about that?
Well, I don't want to talk about it too much. We're working on the film part side of it. So let's just say that we are working on it. So stay tuned.
Okay. That's something to look forward to. Before we have a bunch of questions that came in for you, Eva, but before that, I want to take Zamina, if you can just cue up the video. This is Eva performing with David at the Dick Cavett Show in December 1974. Let's watch.
Takes her minutes, takes her nowhere. Heaven knows she'd have taken anything, cause all night to once a young American. So all night to once a young American. Right through the picture window, she spies the slinky vagabond. The curses as it passes a Ford Mustang. Heaven knows she take anything, but the beacon is tied up for nothing. Saying nothing, he cuts his hand. Showing nothing, it goes like a song. She cries, where have all my heroes gone? All night to once a young American. Young American. So all night to once a young American. All the way from Washington, breadwinner stays at the bathroom floor. Live for justice 20 years. Do we have to die for the 50 more? All night, it wants a young American. Young American, was young American. So all night, it wants a young America.
So incredible.
David was wearing my shoes too.
Was he really?
He's wearing my white shoes.
No, tell me about that. That's incredible. So how did you suggest that, or was it his idea?
Well, no, he had another outfit he stole from me, a flight suit, and he wore it with that, and he liked, they were so comfortable, the shoes. He wore them with that outfit he had on then too.
Oh my God, I love that. All right, so let's get to some of these questions. We have time for a few. Can you talk about meeting Omar Sharif, Eva?
Oh my gosh. Omar Sharif.
I just interviewed his grandson, in January. Omar Sharif.
I want to tell you, I met Omar Sharif when I went to Monaco. And I told you when I went to Europe for the first time. I'm in the cafe. I'm in the club, whatever the discotheque was in the casino, and Omar Sharif was in there. And so I went up to him and I started dancing with him. And he was like, I mean, of course, he didn't look like he did in Lawrence of Arabia or Funny Girl, but he was still cute.
That's great. That's great fun. Can you share some memories of performing with Bowie on the Midnight Special?
Yeah, I mean, we just prepared that show. We had a lot of rehearsals for that show, for the 1980 floor show. And it was just, it was really the beginning of the Astronette period, because, the way I was dressed and everything like that. The other Jeff and the other, I can't even think of what the other, I'm sorry, darling, I can't remember what the other young man's name was, but that was the beginning of the Astronettes, when David decided to form Eva Cherry and the Astronettes.
This is a tough question. Can you tell us where you were when you got the news of Bowie's passing?
I was sleeping, and I just kept hearing my phone go ding, 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 ding. And I'm like, who is texting me, or who's calling me? I couldn't believe it. And finally, when I woke up, I didn't pay attention for a minute, and then I woke up. I had like 200
Wow.
texts, Facebook messengers, things, and they were saying things like, "So sorry for your loss. I'm so heartbroken. I think I want to die. I don't want to live without David Bowie. This is the saddest day of my life." They were saying all those things, and I started to cry. I just didn't know he was sick,
Yeah,
because he didn't tell anybody the last 3 years, except maybe, his close family members knew.
sure.
And I didn't know he had cancer. And then I just thought to myself, wow, what he must have gone through, because cancer, my dad died of cancer, and it's a horrible way to die.
Horrible, so horrible. Ava, you and Bowie both had such a strong fashion sense. Did you go clothes shopping together for your stage outfits?
It's funny. Well, we had Freddie. We had a guy named Freddie who used to make some of our clothes. He made David's in the beginning, and he would make some things for me as well. But no, I always had my own sense of fashion. I always went and bought my own things that I like to wear. I didn't like people dressing me. Some of the top fashion designers used to want to like dress me. They give me, if they gave me their clothes, I would take them. But I'm saying they would be like, "Oh, you should wear." No. I would go to like the upscale thrift shop and find something from the 30s or 40s or something and put it on. And I'd go to the party and they'd go, "Oh, who is that? Versace or Cheruti?" I'd be like, "No, it's Jane Doe."
Yes.
And that would kill them. They would kill them because they were wanting me to say it was, some great designer's clothes. But I had a sense of fashion of my own, and David knew that too. He saw that in me, that he didn't have to dress me. Like I said, he borrowed some of my clothes.
Yeah,
So,
I love that story about him borrowing your heels on Dick Cavett. Where did the title "People from Bad Homes" come from?
I don't know. That was what Tony DeFries called it. That had nothing to do with David Bowie doing that title. They made that title up, not us. We didn't know anything about that title till it actually came out.
Gotcha. We have time for one final question. What was David Bowie's exercise regimen as it related to his experience as a mime that he used as a performer? Did he have a particular time or studio that he would go to? What type of body strengthening exercise did he do for movement? Do you know any of that?
No. When I was with David, he didn't exercise.
No,
after me, when he got married to Iman, I saw that he started building it. It looked really good too. He started building his chest up and things like that. But no, we didn't really have a lot of time. We were always on the road, or always, we were always working. We didn't have, and I wasn't. I was just thin, so I never gained any weight, and he never did either. So it really, we didn't have that. We didn't have any weight problems or anything like that. But we tried to eat pretty healthy as we could. But then David smoked a lot of cigarettes, and that was the main thing. I tried to get him to stop smoking, but he would just say, "Let me do what I want to do." So, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Of course. I lied. One more question. Do you think it's more difficult to break into the music industry?
Give me 5 more questions. Do I think what? Do
you think it's more difficult to break into the music industry these days?
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. Try it. Unless you have already a celeb, or Drake, or Rihanna, or somebody like that pulling you in on like a little song, singing a riff or something. It is not easy. I think it's probably easier for rappers than it is for singers. I see rappers out there, a new name on a rapper every week, and I don't know who the hell they are. And they seem to make a lot of money and get bling bling. Okay, the singers, like a lot of the old school singers and singers that have been around a lot, they struggle through now. They struggle to try to get gigs and everything. I think that this business, I'm a little bit depressed, disappointed in the business when I look at the Grammys and things like that, because I have all due respect for Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion and all that for what they do, but I never thought I would see on a Grammy show 2 girls win, mostly for sliding down a pole, like in a strip club. it really did shock me. And I said, the business will never be the same again.
It's more about spectacle now, and not
Yes,
so much
it's more about spectacle and nudity.
being salacious and shocking. And
Yeah. Showing them those buns and those, those melons.
Ava, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's been really a treat and a pleasure.
Been wonderful, Brian.
And stay on. We're going to actually have your Moon Age Daydream cover play us out. So this is a final treat for everybody. Zamina, if you can cue it up, and we'll just sort of sit back and enjoy.
Thank you so much. And now
I'm an alligator. I'm a mama, papa coming for you. I'm a space invader. I'll be a rock and rollin' bitch for you. Keep your mouth shut. You're talking like a big monkey bird, and I'm busting up my brain for the word. In a Moon Age Daydream, oh yeah. Don't fake it, baby. Lay the real thing on me. The church of man loves us. It's such a holy place to be. Make me, baby. Make me know you really care. Make me jump into the air. Your
Just
Wow.
fantastic, Ava. Fantastic. You really did
Thank
it, Jeff.
you.
Thank you so much again. Everyone, thank you for watching this evening.
Thank you, everybody. God bless. I just want to say God bless everyone and keep safe and love one another, please.
Yep. Be safe, everyone. Have a good weekend. Thank you, Ava.
Bye, darling.